There's a certain type of person who is often misunderstood by others. They go places alone, eat alone, grab coffee alone, take walks alone, watch movies alone, and genuinely enjoy doing many things by themselves. And strangely enough, people are quick to jump to conclusions. That's sad. They probably don't have any friends, or maybe they're antisocial, but that's not necessarily true. The reality is that not everyone who spends a lot of time alone is lonely, and not everyone who is constantly surrounded by people is happy. In today's overly noisy and hyper-connected world, being alone is often seen as something negative. Yet in psychology, being alone and feeling lonely are two completely different things. Loneliness is the feeling of wanting companionship, but not having anyone there. Solitude, on the other hand, is being able to feel whole and content even when no one else is around. So it's important not to make assumptions, because many people who are comfortable being alone actually possess a level of emotional maturity that not everyone develops. In this video, we'll explore why some people prefer doing things on their own and what's really happening beneath the surface from a psychological perspective. The first reason is that they're comfortable with themselves, and that's a level of self-acceptance that isn't easy to reach. Because honestly, not everyone can sit alone in a cafe without feeling awkward. Not everyone can eat by themselves without pretending to be busy on their phone. Not everyone can walk around alone without feeling like everyone is watching them. Most people are afraid of being judged. They worry about looking strange. They fear appearing as if they have no friends. That's why many people would rather force themselves to be around others than truly enjoy their own company. People who are comfortable being on their own have usually already gone through those stages. The stage of feeling awkward, the stage of feeling embarrassed, the stage of feeling like the loneliest person in the room. Eventually, they come to realize something important. Most people aren't thinking about us nearly as much as we imagine. Everyone is busy with their own thoughts, their own problems, and their own lives. And when someone truly understands that, their mindset shifts to a different level. They no longer depend on the presence of others to feel comfortable. They can enjoy life even when they're completely on their own. There's a quote that captures this perfectly. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. And people who are comfortable spending time alone have often reached that point. They don't feel empty when they're by themselves. In fact, they often feel fulfilled because they genuinely know who they are. The second reason is that their social energy is limited, and that doesn't mean they're antisocial. In psychology, there's a concept often referred to as a social battery. Everyone has a different capacity for social interaction. Some people feel energized the moment they're around others. The more people they meet, the more alive and excited they feel. For them, a lively social environment is energizing. But others become mentally drained when they spend too much time interacting with people. It's not because they're arrogant. It's not because they dislike others. And it's not because they don't enjoy socializing. Their minds simply become exhausted more quickly from constant social stimulation. You may have met someone like this before. After spending hours hanging out with people, instead of feeling more energized and excited, they can't wait to go home. They need time alone. They need quiet. They need to step away from the noise for a while. And there's nothing strange about that. That's simply how they recharge. In many cases, this is connected to an introverted personality. But a lot of people misunderstand what being an introvert actually means. Being introverted doesn't mean someone can't socialize. Introverts can hold great conversations, speak in front of large audiences, maintain strong friendships, and even be some of the most engaging people in a room. But afterward, they still need time alone to restore their mental balance and recharge their energy. So if you see someone who often goes places by themselves, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't have friends. They may simply be protecting their peace of mind. The third reason is that they've grown tired of social drama. As people get older, their circle of friends often becomes smaller. And that's completely normal. It's not because they're unpopular. It's not because they can't make friends. It's because they've realized that not everyone deserves a place in their life. Many people who are comfortable being alone have already experienced the opposite phase of life. They've spent years constantly hanging out, being part of multiple social circles, and saying yes to every invitation and gathering. But over time, they start to notice something. The more people involved, the more drama tends to follow. The more friendships there are, the more comparisons arise. And the larger the social circle, the greater the chance of encountering jealousy, insincerity, or relationships that only exist when someone needs something from you. Some people stay close only when you're successful. Others show up only when they need something from you. And experiences like these gradually change a person. Eventually, they arrive at a simple conclusion. It's better to be alone than surrounded by the wrong people. So when someone chooses solitude, it isn't always because they dislike people. Sometimes it's because they've started protecting their peace. As we grow older, we begin to realize that peace of mind is far more valuable than constant social activity. The fourth reason is that they think more clearly when they're alone. From a psychological perspective, the human mind needs space. It needs pauses. It needs moments of quiet. If your head is filled every day with other people's voices, opinions, expectations, and standards, sooner or later you lose touch with your own. And that's why so many people go through life without knowing what they truly want. They've been too busy listening to the world around them. People who are comfortable being alone often use that time for reflection. They use it to think deeply, evaluate their lives, understand themselves better, and plan for the future. That's why many great ideas are born in moments of solitude. Many of life's most important decisions aren't made in crowded gatherings or noisy conversations. They're made while walking alone, sitting quietly, or simply reflecting in silence. Because when a person is alone, they're no longer listening to the noise of the world. They're finally listening to themselves. The fifth reason is that they no longer crave validation from others. And this is a fascinating one, because many people aren't afraid of being alone because they genuinely need companionship. They're afraid of being perceived as having no life. That's why they feel the need to constantly post updates, stay busy, attend every gathering, and make sure they're always seen as part of a social circle. But appearances can be deceiving. Being surrounded by people doesn't automatically mean someone is happy. Sometimes the goal is simply to look popular, connected, or socially active. People who are truly comfortable with solitude have usually moved beyond that stage. They no longer need constant social validation. They don't feel obligated to accept every invitation. They don't feel pressured to reply to every message immediately. They don't need to appear busy or active for the benefit of others. They're able to enjoy their lives without an audience. And honestly, that level of emotional independence is something not everyone develops. There's a powerful quote from May Sarton: "Loneliness is the poverty of self. Solitude is the richness of self." The meaning runs deep. Loneliness leaves a person feeling empty because they lack connection. Solitude, on the other hand, allows a person to feel complete even when they're alone. That's the fundamental difference. Loneliness comes from a sense of absence. Solitude comes from a sense of fulfillment. The sixth reason is that they're more emotionally independent. People who are comfortable spending time alone often develop a strong sense of emotional independence. In other words, their happiness doesn't depend entirely on other people. Their mood isn't constantly determined by who comes into their life or who leaves it. They're able to enjoy life without always needing company. Eating alone, exploring a new place by themselves, or even traveling solo isn't a big deal to them, because they don't put their lives on hold while waiting for someone else to be available. And that's something many people struggle with. If you pay attention, there are countless people who want to do more with their lives. They want to travel, they want to start exercising, they want to try a new cafe, they want to learn new skills, they want to visit places they've always been curious about. But they often say the same things. Maybe when I can find someone to go with, I'll wait until someone's available. I'd feel awkward going by myself. And as a result, nothing happens. Their lives remain on pause, not because they're incapable, but because they've become overly dependent on having someone else by their side. People who are comfortable being alone tend to approach life differently. If they want to go somewhere, they go. If they want to try something new, they do it. If friends can join them, great. If not, they move forward anyway. They don't tie their happiness to other people's schedules, availability, or willingness to participate. And psychologically speaking, that's often a sign of emotional maturity. Because as people grow older, they begin to realize that life is too short to spend it waiting for everyone else to be ready to walk the same path with them. The seventh reason is that they've made peace with themselves. And this may be the deepest reason of all. Because the truth is, not everyone is comfortable being alone. Why? Because when we're alone, we're left with ourselves. And it turns out that not everyone is comfortable facing who they are. Some people find that the moment they're alone, they begin to overthink. They start feeling like they've failed in life. They compare themselves to others. They feel left behind. They focus on everything they haven't accomplished and everything they believe they lack. That's why many people constantly seek out noise, activity, and social distractions. Not necessarily because those things make them happy, but because they're afraid of being alone with their own thoughts. Sometimes, busyness becomes an escape, a way to avoid confronting old wounds, fears, insecurities, or the emptiness they feel inside. People who are comfortable with solitude, however, have often spent years learning how to face those things. Little by little, they've learned to accept their past. They've learned to accept their imperfections. They've learned to accept the realities of their lives. And most importantly, they've stopped treating themselves as an enemy. When someone reaches that point, being alone no longer feels frightening, because the person they meet in those quiet moments is no longer someone they're trying to escape. It's someone they've come to know, understand, and befriend. And that kind of inner peace is incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. The eighth reason is that they're less influenced by the people around them. People who are deeply afraid of being alone are often afraid of being different as well, because they constantly seek social acceptance. As a result, many of their choices are shaped by the expectations of their environment. If their social circle is always going out, they feel pressured to join. If everyone around them is showing off their lifestyle, they feel the need to do the same. If everyone is chasing approval and validation, they find themselves chasing it too. Not necessarily because they genuinely want to, but because they're afraid of being left out or rejected. People who are comfortable with solitude often have a stronger sense of conviction, because they're not overly dependent on social approval. They can say no without worrying that others will distance themselves. They can choose their own path, even when it looks different from what everyone else is doing. And that's incredibly important, because in life, the best decisions aren't always the most popular ones. Sometimes the right decision is the one that leaves you walking alone. People like this tend to have a clearer understanding of what they truly want. They're less concerned with following the crowd because they know their lives aren't meant to be spent trying to please everyone else. The ninth reason is that they place a higher value on genuine relationships. Being comfortable alone doesn't mean they don't need connection. They still need friends. They still need family. They still value sincere, meaningful relationships. The difference is that they don't feel the need to become close with everyone, because they understand that superficial connections can be exhausting. That's why, as they mature, many of them would rather have a handful of truly genuine friends than a large network of relationships built on obligation, appearances, or convenience. For them, the quality of a relationship matters far more than the quantity of people in their lives. They prefer meaningful conversations over empty social noise. They would rather have honest, authentic relationships than connections that look lively on the surface, but lack real substance underneath. And people like this often value the presence of others very deeply, because they don't open the doors of their lives to just anyone. So when they truly let someone in and form a close bond, it's usually sincere and genuine. The 10th reason is that they enjoy the freedom that comes with living life on their own terms. There's a unique sense of peace that comes from being able to enjoy life without excessive dependence on others. People who are comfortable being alone often have a greater sense of mental freedom. They're less concerned with fitting in everywhere they go. They're less afraid of being judged. They're less worried about being seen as different. And because of that, they're able to be themselves without constantly wearing a mask. That makes life feel lighter. Because one of the most exhausting things a person can do is pretend. Pretend to be comfortable when they're not. Pretend to be happy when they're struggling. Pretend to enjoy things they don't actually enjoy, just to gain acceptance from others. People who are comfortable with solitude often reach a point where they stop doing that. They begin living more honestly with themselves. If they're tired, they rest. If they don't enjoy crowded environments, they don't force themselves into them. If they need time alone, they allow themselves to take that time. They no longer live solely to meet other people's expectations. And the more a person learns to live in alignment with who they truly are, the more peace they tend to find in their life. 11th, they understand that not everyone will understand them. This is one of the most important signs of maturity. Many people feel stressed not because their lives are bad, but because they spend too much energy trying to be understood by everyone. The truth is, that's impossible. Not everyone will understand the path we've chosen in life. Not everyone will grasp what's going on in our minds. And not everyone will see the world the same way we do. People who are comfortable being on their own have usually come to accept that reality. They no longer feel the need to explain themselves to everyone. They no longer try to make everyone understand them, because they know that as we grow older, we begin to realize that life isn't about getting everyone to agree with us. In fact, when someone stops craving validation and understanding from everyone around them, life often becomes much more peaceful. 12th, they find peace in simple things. People who are comfortable spending time on their own often learn to appreciate the small moments that many others overlook, sitting quietly with a cup of coffee, taking an evening walk with no particular destination, listening to music alone, reading a book in silence, enjoying the rain without feeling the need to capture or share it. Simple moments like these can bring them a deep sense of peace. Their happiness doesn't always have to come from something big or extraordinary. They don't need constant activity or social interaction to feel fulfilled. And that's what makes this so interesting. Many people spend so much time chasing happiness that they forget to enjoy the simple pleasures of everyday life. Yet some of the most genuine peace comes from quiet, unremarkable moments. People who are comfortable being alone tend to understand this well. They know how to be present for themselves. They know how to enjoy life without constantly seeking attention or validation from the world around them. And perhaps that's why they often seem calmer and more at ease than many others. 13th, they are not afraid of losing the wrong people. This is one of the biggest shifts that happens when someone becomes comfortable being alone. Many people stay in toxic relationships, exhausting friendships, or unhealthy environments simply because they are afraid of being alone. They fear losing friends, being excluded, or having no one by their side. As a result, they remain in situations that are actually hurting them. People who are comfortable on their own, however, usually have the courage to let go. If a relationship continuously drains their mental and emotional energy, they choose to walk away. If a friendship brings nothing but drama and stress, they begin to distance themselves. Not because they are cold, not because they don't care, but because they understand that peace of mind is far more valuable than simply having company. And this is an important truth to understand. Not every loss is a bad thing. Sometimes, letting go of the wrong people is exactly what saves us. 14th, they have a deeper understanding of who they really are. When people spend time alone, they have more opportunities to get to know themselves. They learn what they enjoy, what they dislike, what brings them peace, and what drains their energy. Many people, on the other hand, become so caught up in following the crowd that they never truly get to know themselves. Their lives are constantly moving, yet they never take the time to understand who they really are. That's why some people may seem socially active on the surface, surrounded by friends, constantly laughing, always hanging out, yet feel empty inside. They've spent so much time trying to be the version of themselves that others expect them to be. People who are comfortable being alone tend to have a stronger sense of identity. They know what truly matters in their lives. They can distinguish between what is merely a passing trend and what genuinely brings them happiness. And when someone truly knows who they are, they're far less likely to lose their sense of direction. 15th, they are more resilient when facing life's challenges. Because the truth is, life cannot always be shared with others. There will be times when we have to face things on our own, dealing with failure, coping with loss, or working through disappointment. People who are comfortable being alone are often better prepared for those moments because they've learned to rely on themselves emotionally and mentally. They don't immediately fall apart just because no one is there beside them. They know how to calm themselves. They know how to take small steps forward and rebuild after setbacks. That doesn't mean they never feel sad. They're still human. They can be disappointed, exhausted, or overwhelmed. They can experience loneliness and moments of emptiness just like anyone else. The difference is that they don't panic when they find themselves alone. They aren't afraid of silence or solitude because they've become accustomed to living with themselves and finding strength within. And that often makes them far stronger than they appear on the outside. So the next time you see someone dining alone, traveling alone, walking alone, or simply enjoying life by themselves, don't be too quick to feel sorry for them. They may, in fact, be living a very peaceful life. They may have a world of their own that not everyone can understand. They may be pursuing goals that matter deeply to them, quietly building their dreams behind the scenes. They may be healing from old wounds, one step at a time. Or perhaps they're simply protecting the peace they have worked hard to create. Because as we grow older, we begin to realize an important truth. Not everyone is meant to be part of our journey. Some paths are meant to be walked alone. Some challenges must be faced in silence. And some forms of growth cannot be fully explained to anyone else. Sometimes, sitting alone with a cup of coffee allows a person to be more honest with themselves than they ever could in a crowded room. Sometimes, a solitary walk brings a sense of clarity and calm that is hard to find elsewhere. And sometimes, it is only in silence that we can truly hear our own thoughts and understand what our hearts are trying to tell us. In a world that is constantly demanding our attention, that kind of quiet self-awareness has become something truly valuable. Because today, many people are busy looking happy, but far fewer are truly at peace. Many spend their time seeking attention, yet never take the time to truly understand themselves. Others are so afraid of being alone that they're willing to lose their sense of self just to gain acceptance from those around them. But the truth is, not everything needs to be displayed. Not every joy needs an audience, and not every journey needs to be shared. Some people deliberately choose a quieter path, not because they struggle to connect with others, but because they found a sense of peace there. They understand that a busier, more crowded life doesn't necessarily lead to a more peaceful heart. And the more comfortable a person becomes with themselves, the less they depend on validation from the outside world. That's why people like this often seem calmer and more grounded. They're not preoccupied with proving themselves. They're not chasing recognition or constantly seeking approval. They're not trying to capture everyone's attention. Instead, they're focused on living their lives in a way that feels meaningful and true to who they are. And honestly, that isn't an easy place to reach. To become truly comfortable being alone, a person often has to go through a great deal first: disappointment, loss, feeling misunderstood, and moments of deep loneliness. Until eventually, they learn an important lesson. Peace doesn't always come from being surrounded by people. Sometimes it comes from fully accepting who you are. And perhaps that is what real maturity looks like. It's not about having the busiest social life. It's not about having the most friends. It's not about appearing happy all the time on social media. It's about being able to feel whole, even when you're alone. Because in the end, the strongest people are not always those who have the most people around them. Often, they are the ones who can remain steady and at peace, even when they have no one beside them. And the truth is, not everyone has the courage to reach that point.